let's get started then. So, hello everybody who's watching. My name's Damian. We're doing a video for Alopecia UK for Alopecia Awareness Month and Alopecia UK's 15th birthday. To do that, we wanted to do a number of videos about different subjects, one of which is being a man with alopecia. It's a perspective we don't get to share very often. It's a perspective we don't hear about very often. So we've got a small panel of people here who will introduce themselves in a minute. My name's Damian, so I've had alopecia a long time, since I was 6 years old. So it started with patches and alopecia areata as it's described, and then now I've got alopecia universalis. So, and I've been like this now for, I think, about 25 years. So yeah, it's been quite a long time. So I've got quite a broad experience of growing up with alopecia and being a man and a parent with alopecia. So that's my history. Just to ask the guys to introduce themselves. Matt, do you want to give a brief introduction?
Yeah, my name's Matt. I've had alopecia quite a long time as well, since I was 2. I believe the trigger of it was when I fell off a park bench, I think on holiday, and it just gradually fell out from there, and then gradually throughout my life, again, alopecia areata throughout, but then it got worse in transition. So from like primary school to high school, loads fell out. High school to college, loads fell out, and then I think the final one was going to university, and then facial hair and eyebrows went then. So similar to Damian in regards that it was areata, but it's progressively got more kind of to universalis now.
Mm.
So yeah, so I think I lost my hair when I was like fully at uni, probably when I was like 19, 20. So for about just over 10 years now, it's been more kind of universalis. So yeah.
So I've still had it on longer than you. You're making me feel old. Thanks, Matt. Rob, what about you?
Okay, I I still have alopecia areata. At the moment, I've just got like a small sliver on the back of my head right now. But I developed, first of all, I lost my beard about 2006-07. I didn't really think much of it at that time, about a year, and then I started to get alopecia areata, so the side of my head, back of my head, top of my head, and it kind of shifted, you know, got better, got a bit worse. Totally recovered by about 2011, something like that, and then it returned again, and that lasted a couple of years, and it came back again. And right now, it's just like I said, a small patch on the back of my head. I still see it on my forearm sometimes, my lower leg sometimes. But yeah, that's it. That's the extent of mine. It's never developed more than an areata phase.
And I think I've known you for it's got to be about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I've definitely, I remember a few times when we've met that you've had a patch in a different place and it comes and goes. So yeah, it's been going on quite a while as well, hasn't it? So, but not the same kind of progression that perhaps Matt and I have seen.
That's right. I didn't have the progression, and the beard. Once the beard came back, that never went again, and that was like 2006, 7, 8 kind of thing. And I've had a full beard since then. But yeah, it comes and goes.
Never had one in my life.
Yeah, I'll show you today.
I know you probably don't do it at your age now, but like, do you ever worry about it getting progressively worse again and all going out again, or does that not bother you, I suppose, anymore? Or
I'm fine with it now. It's like I mean, when I first got it, I hid for a good year and a half. It coincided with a very stressful situation at work as well, and so I quit my job at that time, and I kind of I lurked on message boards, and the way I found to work myself through it was actually I started drawing and illustrating my experiences, my journey, and that kind of helped to a certain extent. And then eventually, over a period of time, I started meeting some of the guys who ran Alopecia UK. But that took me a good year and a half, 2 years before I actually approached anyone or, you know, told anyone about it, really, that I didn't have to. But now I don't think about it now. I walk down the streets. I think partly it was other things as well. It wasn't just the alopecia. I was already stressed about other stuff like work and stuff like that. So now I don't really tend to think about it. Of course, I'd love that little patch here to grow back, but it doesn't seem to, and it stabilizes as well. It's not like it comes back and then something here goes, for example. So maybe the stability of it helps as well.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah, it's so we're all got different situations. Thanks. Adam, what about you?
Hello. I'm Adam, and I apologise in advance for anyone that's finding it hard to understand my accent.
Not at all.
You know, um, I first kind of got alopecia when I think I was 16 years old. It was during just after GCSE time, so I was pretty stressed, and I remember like one tiny patch on the side of my head. After about 6 months, that cleared up, and things just went back to normal. Then I'd say when I was 18, I fell out with like my whole group of friends, um, all at once, and it was incredibly stressful. And within 3 months, everything was gone. It started with my eyebrow, and then I was fixated on it. And I was googling this and googling that, diagnosing myself with all different kinds of stuff. And then it just everything just kind of went within the space of 6 weeks, I think, between just small patches and nothing.
Well,
Every single day.
Have you seen periods of regrowth since then, or is it just old?
The past kind of month or so, I've been getting like wee baby hairs here and there, but nothing major, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it, that sometimes I can't remember. It was probably a couple of years ago. I started taking a new vitamin, and just because for different reasons, nothing to do with alopecia. And it's actually an immune system thing. It's about boosting your immune system when you come into contact with lots of people. And interestingly, at this point in time, people who've got a cold or whatever, because I did a lot of traveling, and literally within about 3 weeks, I had a full head of this baby, wispy white, very very soft hair, and a fluffy beard. I just could not stop sitting. I was sitting all the time. My wife was laughing at me because I was just constantly playing with my beard.
Yeah.
If you carry on rubbing it, it's going to fall out. And then about 3 weeks later, it had all gone again, and it never happened again. It was a really strange experience. Actually, to be honest, I don't think I liked it. It was a bit warm. I didn't like it.
Yeah, you kind of get used to just the breeze.
Yeah.
You're kind of more aerodynamic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've definitely got used to it. Matt, have you ever had that? Where it just...
I have actually. When I train at certain times, or when I change my diet around my kind of exercise and things, I had a similar thing where I almost had like a full head of little baby hairs. And I was like, oh, something's changed, something's different. And I got some on my arms as well. But then, same again, it just kind of went. Then one day it just kind of went. But to be honest with you, if it's like that, I'd rather just be bald. So I just shave them in the shower.
Yeah.
Just get a big razor and just get rid of them. I don't like the way it feels in the wind when you can feel your hair going.
Yeah, no, that's the thing I had started to notice when I was, going to sleep and stuff at night. There was a couple of little hairs here, and I hadn't felt it in years, but this sensation of them like pushing against my skin, it was surreal.
Yeah,
it was so weird.
What you get used to.
I remember watching Billy Connolly once on a show, and he was talking about this one hair that he woke up one morning and it was like a foot long, and it was sticking out of him, and it was just one hair. The night before. I've quite had one that long, but I do occasionally get one there, and it's black. And if I forget that it's there, and then I see somebody I haven't seen for ages, and they go, "You got hair?" We're really talking about one hair. It's a very strange thing to happen. The whole room sort of goes. Yeah, it's very strange. Well, thanks, Adam. Thanks for the intro. So we've sort of put together some questions and some topics we want to go through. Free for all, really. Let's just see where it leads, and feel free to kind of ask each other lots and lots of questions. But I'll start with kind of a broad topic. What would you say have been the biggest challenges of being a man with alopecia? So, how did it feel losing your hair? How did it impact on you, on your life, really? Any starters?
I'll start on this one. I thought it was devastating because I had no idea or comprehension what it was. And I mean, I said it was 2006 or 7, and I didn't take it really seriously at the beginning because a beard is just not quite good not to shave so often, But then when it started with the patches on my head, the back of my head, side of my head, then it really affected me. I mean, like I said, I kind of hibernated for the best part of a year or more. Didn't want to go out. Felt very self-conscious. especially the back of my head. And I remember like thinking like going up the tube on the escalators on the tube, and then the wind would rush down and you'd feel your hair just rise up here and revealing a big patch. And you think, oh, what's the person behind me thinking right now, and all that kind of thing. So I was very self-conscious about it, and it coincided with me stopping work for a while. I was already stressed out from a work, because this is the design work situation, and I quit that client. And so that gave me an excuse to be at home quite a lot. So in a way, although I started looking at message boards and finding out more about it, because I wasn't going out, I kind of hid even more than I would have normally, I guess. So it took me a long while to turn that around, really. I found various things. I mean, first of all, I knew I was pretty unfit at the time. I was heavier than I am now and less fit than I am now. So I did change my nutrition. I changed my diet. I did all those kind of things. Got into exercise a little bit more, or a lot more actually. And eventually, bit by bit, a little bit of confidence came back. I did go and see a specialist as well, though. I went to the doctor and see a specialist. I took all the medicines, like the prednisolone, did that, had the injections in my head as well, because I just really wouldn't accept the situation I was in. So I wanted to get a full head of hair. And that did bring it all back, actually, for a couple of years. And then it started disappearing again. So it's been a bit of up and down. But now it's kind of leveled out a lot. It's much more stable than it was. So. But also coupled with that, where I am in my life as well, is a much more confident place than I was at that time. So it's like, how much was the alopecia compounding my existing issues, or how much was it just the issues in itself? It's hard to know in hindsight, how much each situation had to play.
It's an interesting point, that. And you used the phrase self-conscious. So I thought about the same thing. And for me, it was all about confidence and feeling self-conscious. So I'd Ariata up to being probably about 13, 14. So I covered it actually quite well, because at the time, and no jokes please, it was fashionable to have long hair at the top and shave it underneath if you were into the music I was into and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got away with it for years. Sorry?
This in the 90s then?
Yeah, early 90s, yeah. Grunge, yeah.
Grunge.
And so you shaved your hair underneath, and so I got away with it for ages, because if it was on top, this kind of mop of curly hair, I had hid it. But if it was at the sides, I just kept shaving it really short underneath, and then eventually it was just too much. And I think the point where it was too much and it became visible, my confidence went absolutely rock bottom. And being 13 with your hair falling out, I was quite small, unfortunately, as well. So things like in the changing rooms in the gym, and things after PE and stuff like that. And then when people noticed it, there was an awful lot of bullying went on. So feeling self-conscious for me actually turned into anxiety. And I think I ended up in a situation as a teenager where, as you say, actually the normal issues of being a teenager, I think for me were compounded by the fact that I was an easy target, basically. Yeah. I still feel like that sometimes. There are occasions where I walk in a room and I feel self-conscious because somebody might look at me who probably doesn't mean anything by it, but looks at me in my mind in a strange way. And my wife says, "You're dreaming. Nobody really looks at you funny like that. Nobody can tell." But some people do.
Yeah, I think once you catch one person look at you, then in my head, you kind of feel like everyone is going to start looking at you. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, self-consciousness is an extremely big thing. Especially for me, like I was quite, don't want to say, like maybe a bit overconfident when I was younger, like, but once this hit, it just went down, didn't come back up. Then,
do you still feel like that?
Yeah, on a day-to-day, normally no, but there are certain days where it's almost like it's the only thing on my mind, kind of, especially like when you're in big crowded places and when I don't have the hat on, there's no hiding it. So you just feel like the center of attention, even though you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's happened to me once or twice when I've been on holiday. So if I'm in a completely different country, and obviously different countries, different cultures, different kind of ways of behaving. But there was one particular place I'd gone on holiday, it was awful. It was just awful. There was the crowd of kids who'd never ever seen anybody who looked like me. and they just could not stop laughing. And I tried to kind of laugh with them, because I thought, well, you know, they don't mean anything by it. They're just like, wow, look at this fella. I've never seen anything like him. But it was absolutely horrendous. I mean, it was just, I felt really kind of, it's the most uncomfortable I've ever been. And it was a group of 6 kids who made me feel like that. As a 40-year-old man, it was like, get me out of here. And I think it's strange, isn't it, that those things, those feelings, wherever they've come from, whether it's, you know, whether it's when you're slightly older and you've had a situation happen that you had, Rob, at work, and you're feeling, or you're on the tube, or you're a child or a teenager, or those feelings immediately still on occasion come back. It's a weird thing.
I think that's important. Like, it's, for me especially, and I think similar to what you just said, like, it's we can't control it. It's like, it's a real feeling of like helplessness, I think. Like, whatever's happened to us or is completely out of your control, and that's what I struggle with a lot of the time. But it's just, it's like I say, it's like your controls. It's like people are laughing at you, and it's like you can't change anything. There's nothing you can really do to actively change the way you look anymore. Yeah. And that was a struggle for me as well. And obviously self-esteem and confidence issues came as a result of that. One of the main challenges for me was when I had like I had a bald head, but I had full facial hair and eyebrows at the end of college. And like, girls, my face fell out in like a month period. And girls I dated, like, say before Christmas, didn't recognize even who I was after Christmas. Wow. When I went out into like Preston, for example, or like my local city. So like, I found that I used to avoid it, like the city of Preston, for like a few years, because just to avoid the prospect of seeing anyone that I used to know before, like, my appearance changed a bit. And it's just coming to terms with, I suppose, a difference in a different way you look now, really. And that was a major challenge for me. I don't know if everyone else felt a similar way, but
100%, yeah. And sometimes it's still, I would kind of catch myself looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, you know, that's not what I look like. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's hard to get used to. I still don't think I've got used to it all these years later, but it is what it is. Unfortunately.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, actually. You've still not got used to it, and it's, you know, it's an absolutely valid feeling, isn't it? You know, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I've never really thought about that personally, because I can't ever remember being any other way, to be honest. My daughter has never seen me with hair. And my wife, actually, talking about dating, I mean, you were obviously more successful than me, Matt. You talked about girls you dated. You're right. My wife actually joked that she'd leave me if I had hair. That's one of her favourite things about me, is that I'm an alopecian. So it's a strange thing, but I think, I can't remember myself any other way, Adam. To be honest, it's. I mean, I'm probably a lot older than you, so it's different. But I think, I don't think I could be any other way. And Matt, you said earlier on, you quite like either being bald or not being bald, but it's one or the other.
It is one or the other. College, when I had facial hair and eyebrows, they were quite defining features for me. So when that kind of left, that was like, I wasn't being bothered. I was happy being bald. But as long if I kept that bit, I'd have been a lot happier. But once it all fell out, then like, I'm happy the way I look now. I'd rather just, like you said, all bald or all hair, like one or the other. Don't tease me with this kind of bald round. Yeah.
It's the transition, isn't it? That's the worst thing, when you don't know what's happening 1 month to the next.
It is. Speaking about kids as well, before, Damian, you said like the most uncomfortable part was like them kids on holiday. That same period, what I spoke about when I lost my facial hair all at once, I actually was doing a teaching degree at the time, and I was teaching lessons before Christmas in front of all these students and stuff. Went home for like a Christmas break, and then my hair fell out, and I had to get back in front of the classroom again to teach the same kids that I'd taught before Christmas. And like self-esteem and confidence is like an all-time low. And I just found it so difficult. That was like a serious challenge for me as well. I didn't know how to respond. If like kids are just, sometimes they're perceived as mean, but they're just curious at times.
Yeah, insensitive, because they don't know any better.
Yeah, so, and I didn't have it in my locker. So if a kid questioned me and said, "Sir, why have you no hair left?" I don't think I had that in me to kind of respond. I don't think I was armed for it then. I was literally just in a really, really poor place. But yeah, that was
Well,
probably
these kids spoke Arabic, so I had no choice but to just kind of stand there and take it. Like, what we're going to do, you know, I think other than the usual gestures that I won't repeat on the video for charity, you know, there's not much else I could say really. And yeah, I mean, we went in the end. My wife shooed them away, and we left. But it was a unique experience. I went to India as well, and I'm not joking. Somewhere around India, there are at least 25 photos of me with more than 50 students who basically insisted that I stand in the middle of their school day out photo. I mean, they all thought it was fantastic. They really enjoyed it. But for me, it was, you know, in terms of being self-conscious and feeling uncomfortable, I've never felt like such a standout oddball. You know, it was just one of the strangest things. But I think it's that we all mentioned self-esteem and self-confidence, and do you think that's changing with? I mean, I think the answer is not naturally obvious, but how do you think that changes with age and kind of different stages of your life?
Oh, well, that's a big question.
That's a tough question.
Yeah,
it's an important video.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, it takes a lot of work. There's no denying that. It takes a lot of work to build your own confidence up, and where you reach for that confidence, or where you find out about yourself. And I think you do find out a lot more about yourself through experiences like this. I think with age, yes, things improve with age, from, you know, being able to deal with that a little better. But then you do realise I've still got loads of issues about loads of other things in my life, not alopecia related, you know, and you think, okay, I've sorted that out, and there's other things to sort out in my life, you know, there's all kinds of things. But it's a lot of hard work to turn it around. It's a slow ship, you know, you can't turn it around in a few weeks. Yeah, it takes a while. It did with me, at least, you know, and I found a therapeutic way to do it through drawing and painting and stuff like that. And luckily for me, that was good. And then the thing that I resisted the most was actually meeting other people, going to meetings down in London. And I resisted that probably because it's a typical bloke reaction, that blokes tend to isolate themselves and wallow. And I looked at forums, and that was about it. But as far as going out and talking to others or meeting others, that took a long time for me to actually do, really.
Yeah.
I focused on stuff where, like, obviously it takes time. It took me a while to kind of accept myself in the new way I looked, but I tried to focus on stuff I could control, that kind of I was good at, that gave me confidence. And I did that kind of through sport and exercise. And I kind of just threw myself into that, and just kind of, because you kind of enjoy it. So with sport, you've got like 10, 11 teammates as well around you that'll help. Is my internet going here? Or?
A wee bit, yeah.
It went a little bit then, but it's all right. You're back now.
Weird.
Yeah, but then again, like trying to focus on stuff that I can control. I thought, well, I can't control the way I look here, but I'm fully in control of my neck down. So I thought, I'll hit the gym. Girls like a muscly man. So I thought I'll just kind of like change my appearance a little bit. But focus on stuff that I can control, that will kind of help my confidence a little bit. So that's kind of the way. I know it's a bit of a teenage, like a young insecure teenager way to deal with it, but I didn't know any other way I could do it, really.
I remember your guns from last year, actually. I do remember.
It's kind of stuck with me now.
I do remember after I'd met you, subconsciously thinking the day after, I think I should go to the gym. I can't remember why.
It's all built out of insecurity. That's what.
Yeah. No, I suppose when I think about it, I felt like I grew up faster. You mentioned this, Rob. You said, you sort of learn about yourself quite quickly, I think. I probably grew up a little bit quicker when that happened as a teenager, because no choice really. Everybody around me wasn't growing up particularly fast, and I was the brunt of their joke. So I just had to kind of grow up and try and look past that and be over them, and just kind of not let that immaturity that they had bother me. But as a result of that, I think it made me, in a different way, more kind of competitive in other ways, things like sport. I'm not good at team sport because, well, I'm not. I'm quite good at it, but I get a bit too competitive.
Right.
And I can't let go. And so I just end up being the guy that everybody's frustrated with because he's running at them too hard, he's throwing the ball too hard, and it makes me competitive. But it's also made me quite ambitious, and that's changed over many years. I think it was all about work at one point, and the last few years it's all been about different experiences. And I do think to some extent that's come from having alopecia, and like you said, Rob, going through that stage or phase of my life, or phases of my life, of rebuilding my confidence. And as a teenager, I had absolutely none whatsoever. And slowly, as I met people who were good people to have around me, teammates in a team sport, or friends who were actually real friends instead of the idiots that I thought were my friends, it's helped me to build a degree of confidence where actually it's a little bit selfish. Actually, it's all about me. It's all about what I want to do and where I want to go. So but that has taken a very, very, very long time, and I'm now probably at an age where I'm allowed to just get slowly grumpier now and think about myself even more. So that's all right.
All people rights.
Yeah, exactly. Old guy rule. So no, it's an interesting one. In terms of self-esteem, getting a little bit more deep and controversial. Would you say that having alopecia has had an effect in terms of your mental health? And by all means, choose not to answer this question, but has it ever driven you to the point where you've sought treatment or advice and guidance about that from a mental health well-being point of view?
Well, I was actually in talking therapy from January, around about start of January this year, just until this whole COVID stuff started. And that was after, years and years of just stress piling up on top of me, until it just got to the point where I knew I had to do something about it. So I obviously got in contact with my GP. I initially contacted them last summer, and straight away tablets. That was the only real thing they had to offer at that point, and I had to persist for a while to actually get referred for a talking therapy. Now I can't really give an honest review of it because obviously I wasn't there that long until the whole world shut down. But I do think once it starts up again, that will be something that can help, because it's an outlet, if you know what I mean. This person, although they don't understand what you're going through, it was just nice to kind of radiate onto them.
Sometimes that's the best thing about it. I was really lucky a few years ago. I did a mental health first aid course at work, so it's a role that we have for a lot of people in the company. And as part of that, I found out loads and loads and loads about the services and the things that are out there. And I've had talking therapy in that way in my past as well, partly about alopecia and other things in my life. And I think for me, the objectivity of it actually was the best bit about it, because that person didn't try and fix it, didn't try and give me advice. They tried to help me work out what I could do about it. And I think one of the things that came out of it, actually, Matt, you mentioned it, was to do things that make me happy and that put me in control. So I know it sounds daft. I like growing vegetables. I really enjoy it. There's something about going and snipping a bit of whatever it is and putting it on the plate and eating it, and it just makes me happy. So I've kind of done it ever since. I like cooking, things like that I think that you can get to the end of and say, oh, that's really good. I'm really glad I did that. So no, it's interesting. Thanks for sharing it, Adam. And I think I think it's something that we do avoid. People in general avoid it. I think there's a stigma that men avoid things like that more than women. But actually, from my experience, it's a massive, massive help, and the objectivity actually is a really, really important part of it. So yeah, I think we've got a survey coming out actually later this year for men, and one of the questions there is about what could this charity or other charities do more to support men from a mental health point of view. And there's loads of different organisations out there, that are specifically trying to help men. with mental health issues, and hopefully that makes it a bit easier for people to talk about it as well, because it's a really important topic. And for me personally, alopecia, you know, no question, as a teenager, yeah, anxiety about being bullied, depression about being bullied. I mean, you talked about dating girls as a teenager. I got bullied by girls as a teenager, so you know, I wouldn't even dare ask any of them out, not in a million years. It was horrific actually, thinking back to it. But yeah, it definitely affected my mental health. I don't consciously think it does anymore. Maybe it does and I don't realise. But
Yeah.
I can't imagine what all of you guys have gone through, actually, because I mean, I didn't lose any of my hair until I was just turned 40. So I mean, you guys had the worst time to lose hair, really, as a guy in school or college or whatever. So I mean, whatever I've been through, I can't imagine what it would have been if I'd gone through that, you know, in my early 20s or late teens or something like that, like you guys did. It's so much more difficult.
it was, well, I think maybe, but I think it's all relative.
Yeah,
you know,
I was going to say that.
It's great. It's such a personal journey, isn't it? And everyone does it. It's hard to kind of relate. Even I'm struggling to relate to even though like there's similarities and stuff. Like, I can't believe what some of you two have gone through as well. And I it's just so personal, and to get through it in your own specific way as well. So, yeah.
It's all relative, and I think, you know, we've all met people, other people with alopecia, and I think particularly, I mean, obviously Adam's the first time we've met, but Matt and Rob and I have been to Alton Towers and different meetings. I've done some of the kids groups and stuff like that as well, and I still find, I have to say, when I'm in a room full of people with alopecia and I'm hearing other people's stories, exactly like you said, Matt, I don't really see what I went through as being particularly difficult. When I'm especially with kids. I mean, but that's the reason I got involved with the charity in the first place, was because I sat in Costa Coffee in Halifax, and this kid walked past me. He was about 10, and he just could not take his eyes off me at all. He was like, I've never seen anybody that looks like me, and he had no hair at all. And I didn't talk to him actually, because it felt a bit kind of odd to go over. I just smiled and waved at him, and he smiled and waved back. And I thought to myself, actually, from a men with alopecia point of view, if I had me to talk to when I was him, actually, or even just me to see actually, yeah, you can get through it and live a normal life and be married and have a job and go on holiday and, you know, do the things that you're frightened of doing. That's the reason I got involved with the charity. But I think it brings out an interesting question, actually, to move on to another question, which is, do you think there are things that are specifically difficult for men with alopecia? And if so, what do you think they are?
I think men are very easily dismissed, as, you know, men don't care about how they look. You know, they don't. It's not a big deal if they lose their hair, like, but it is. You know what I mean? It's just we tend to internalize it more, I think, than, not to be, you know, stereotypical, but women are obviously, you know, on billboards with long flowing hair and stuff. So I'm finding it hard to like get the words, if you know what I mean.
Well, there's actually, I think that what you're referring to is the societal kind of norms that you've got. So as you say, you know, you talk about it often with young women and the perception of body image and things like that. And I think that's kind of the question, is from a male point of view, do you think that this perception that it's not a big deal for a man to lose his hair is, you know, how do you feel about that?
I think it's just as difficult for men losing. I know there's a social norm of, it's men go bald sometimes, but because of that, there's less places to hide. And I feel like the support that women with alopecia have, like the wigs are incredible, the makeup, the microbladed eyebrows and things like that. I think there's a lot more stigma around a man wearing a wig than there is around a woman wearing a wig. And I think if you walk into a room with a wig on as a man, I think you turn more heads
Yeah.
potentially if you're just walking bald. So I think as a man, there's probably almost arguably a less kind of a support there, I think. I don't know if you agree with me or not. But
No, that's
No,
a really
yeah,
interesting point.
100%.
Sorry, Adam, go.
No, I'm just, yeah, wigs is a big thing. I was offered them obviously by a dermatologist when this all really got bad, but these are £20 each, as opposed to a couple £100 for a wig. So
yeah.
And the rest. I mean, I did.
yeah,
It's an interesting point you make, Matt, and I think, yeah, I can't disagree with you. I think I hadn't really thought about it like that. I think it's relative. I think it's very difficult for anybody to go through. But I did an event actually. Alopecia UK did an event in Leeds a couple of years back, and it was all about products and what's out there. You know, buffs, hats, henna crowns. You know, and so there were some wig tutorials and stuff like that about how to maintain your wig. And I mean, I was fascinated. I've never worn a wig. I was absolutely fascinated. I was absolutely gobsmacked, to your point, Adam, by the price. I mean, some of these things are thousands and thousands of pounds, and they're amazing, absolutely amazing.
They do look incredible. Some of these, they look unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, they do, but it's very difficult. Going to some of the support groups where there's quite a lot of women, Leeds group particularly, there's quite a lot of women in the group. I'm occasionally the only bloke in Leeds. It's a real challenge because not everybody can afford it. And they're not easy to look after either. And if you get it wrong and you ruin one, then you know it's a big loss. But Matt, your point's a good one. It's well made. I think I got offered them, Adam, on the NHS when I was a kid, and I never took it up because I think especially if you're old enough to remember comedy from the 80s and the 90s, you know, there were so many jokes and sketches done about men wearing wigs and blowing off, and you know, all the different nicknames that we've got for wigs. And yeah, it's just an interesting point. I think if a man and a woman walked into a room and they're both wearing a wig, somebody's more likely to make a joke at the expense of the man than they are of the woman now, or maybe openly. Maybe they'd take the mickey out of everybody in private. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. There is a stigma attached to it for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's worse for men. I know it's just as horrendous for girls as well sometimes, but I just feel, yeah, men, it's more of a mentality. You just have to get on with it sometimes.
yeah.
Grin and bear it.
Yeah, shave it off.
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
Mm.
I'm trying to think about the kind of other impact on it from a life point of view. We've joked a few times about dating. It's a subject that immediately makes me fold my arms and kind of turn away. To be honest, I'm very lucky that I met my wife, and that she hasn't left me yet. To be honest, so I've never really had to do a lot of dating. I don't. I mean, how does everybody else? How has everybody else felt about dating? Because I personally, it just makes me terrified. The idea of somebody finding out that I've got alopecia when I first arrive on a date, you know, how do you approach things like that? Do you tell them in advance? And then, you know, it's all a bit awkward, I think.
Yeah, I've never had to experience that because I've been with my partner before, during, and after, so I can't contribute much to that element. So, but yeah, I can imagine it's very tough, very tough.
Well, yeah, the only thing I can contribute to this is it usually doesn't make it past the swipe on the screen and the chat, because I just don't have the. I think it's confidence that would hold me back from actually getting out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd love to, like 100%, but yeah, it's just lack of confidence, really low self-esteem, because you're presenting yourself to someone that does not know you, doesn't know your story, so they're going to make just a snap judgment, or at least that's what I think in my own head. You know, that they'll probably look at me like, my God, this guy's 23 and he's absolutely no hair. What's going on?
Yeah,
that's a big scary thing. Like,
yeah. With me, I could never approach someone on a night out or anything and just like first meeting go over and chat someone up, because my like self-confidence and self-esteem isn't that high. But in terms of, I've never really don't get me wrong, that's some left eye really, but I've never really struggled. If I get to know someone and your personality shines through, whether you met someone at work or at university, it's never been a problem for me really. I could never ever go up to someone on the night out on impulse because I'm too scared of rejection to turn around and like, do you know what I mean? I wouldn't know how to cope with that. But
No.
once my confidence was a bit higher, once the initial couple of years after I lost all my hair, once I got over that, yeah, I think your confidence does grow and it does start to shine through. And but I just, like I said before, I just tried to focus on stuff that I could control in terms of like, you can control what you wear, fashion, you can control your teeth, you can control your body in terms of your physique. And I just try to focus on stuff like that. It's a very, I don't know, insecure kind of mentality, I guess. But I found that when my confidence was higher and I actually got a chance to know someone and then they knew my story and then your sense of humour comes through and stuff. It didn't really affect me too much, to be honest with you. And to be honest, it's dead nice. I know these people are probably just being nice, but a lot of people say that they prefer me now than when I looked at it. Which is like, I can't imagine it.
No, neither can I. I don't believe when people tell me that, I don't believe it at all.
But yeah, it's quite nice of them to say. But yeah, I'm a bit skeptical as well.
I was talking about this to my wife the other night as I was preparing for all this stuff and trying to think about how to, what kind of questions we were going to talk about and stuff. And as a teenager, certainly. I remember walking up to a girl and asking her out, and actually she laughed out loud and ridiculed me in front of the whole kind of playground, and I was like, that's it, I'm never doing that again. And ever since then, like you, I've never ever been able to kind of, I mean, it's a bit of an 80s 90s thing anyway. I think people date different ways these days, but I've never been able to walk up to anybody in a bar and do that whole chat up thing, because I probably couldn't have done it anyway, even if I had it, because that's just been a gibbering mess. But I definitely couldn't do it based on how I felt. And now, it's weird. I was laughing with my wife. I think there's more women who state their attraction for me now than ever in my life. And what it comes back to is exactly what you just said, is confidence, sense of humour. And actually, I'm probably for the first time about 5-6 years ago, I'm 100% comfortable in my own skin, but it's taken me 20 odd years to get to that point. There are still things that I can't do, that I would never do, but I think that's just who I am now, and that's just the way it is, and I can't really change those things anymore. But it's really weird. It's absolutely bizarre. And my wife was like, hang on a minute, so women tell you all the time that they like, and I was like, well, don't start a conversation here. Don't go there. But no, it is a very, very odd thing to think about doing. And the whole swiping thing, I mean, I'm too old to think about that anyway.
It's the best invention in the world. So it is.
I suppose it's a lot easier than it was when we were teenagers and when we were young and out there dating, because you had all that pressure with all your mates sitting at the table when you went across to talk to somebody, and now they're just watching you over your shoulder, endlessly swiping.
I'll tell you a positive though. My girlfriend that I've got now, one of her main attractions to me when we first met was because she said I looked smooth and clean. So there's definitely positive there.
That's going on your Alopecia UK badge for a long time.
Yeah. Smooth and clean. We'll have to make one up.
No, my wife said the same thing actually. There's a photograph of me when I had this long hair downstairs, and whenever anybody comes round and says, "Is that you?" My wife's like, "Yeah, if it comes back, then he's out. That's it." So there are pluses, and that's I guess is almost my final question really. I think from there's lots of impacts and lots of different considerations about how we feel about it and what we can do about it. But I think there are positives out of it as well. I think for me personally, as I've said before, it's made me who I am, and that might be through negative experience in some cases. But but 100%, I've come out the other side of that a much stronger person and a lot more comfortable with who I am. I know that sounds easy after 20 some years, but I think anybody who's watching, who's at the beginning of that journey, hopefully, you know, you can see there are people who've gone through it, been through it, still going through it, and actually they're all doing what everybody else in the world does. For me personally, I'm not going to say this for everybody, it's about me. And that sounds like I'm being a bit egotistical, but that's not how I mean it.
Yeah.
As soon as I became comfortable with me, everything else fell into place.
Completely agree with that. Yeah. There's also, like, I feel like I've gained more of like an emotional intelligence as well. Like, I'm a nicer person because of what I've been through. So I treat other people in that nice way that I'd like to be treated, regardless of how a person looks or anything like that.
I think I'm exactly the same, yeah. But I think that's obviously because, you know, we are kind of different now. So whereas before I never knew what it felt like, you know, to be the centre of attention, you know, so that someone could, you know, make a remark about how you looked. Whereas now I do know what that's like. So, you know, I wouldn't give anyone a second glance if, you know.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have more empathy for other people because, you know, you know what you've been through and the things you have to deal with to get to where you are now. And I think so that comes across to other people, and you become, like you said, Matt, you become hopefully a nicer person for it as well. It's confidence building, it's character building, and then everyone, the people with alopecia and who don't have alopecia, they've got other challenges they have to deal with, and that just builds you up over your period, you know, over your length of time as you grow, you know.
Yep. And for you, Rob, it actually got you out of a job and a career that you, strangely, a set of circumstances that also involved alopecia led you to be a creative genius. Look and create.
Well, yeah, there you go. Look at that. Look at that logo. Marvelous.
Where would we be without that? So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. I work only with nice people now. I can pick and choose a bit more, so that's quite nice.
Yeah, and hot yoga in the park, I noticed on Instagram the other day.
Yes, yeah, do lots of yoga in the park, in Zoomland, everywhere now, and I still do the design, obviously. It's about 60-40 yoga-wise these days, but yeah. I mean, I would never, that's one thing, I would never have thought 10 years ago that I would be standing up in front of 20-30 people teaching yoga to people, considering where I was, you know, in my hermit-like status 10 years ago. So, yeah, it's amazing how things turn around. And things change, and even with design work as well. I pick and choose who I work with, and it's about the connection with that person rather than the kind of the job it is, you know. So you mature in so many different ways. Well, hopefully, anyway.
Well, some of us do, and I think some people do, some people don't. But I think hopefully, us talking about it from a personal experience point of view has been helpful, and I'd just say thanks to all of you for sharing it, really. I know some of it's quite personal stuff to share, and obviously, you know, this video is going to go out to a lot of people, but I hope for anybody watching that it's been useful. And obviously from a support point of view, if you know, if anything we talked about really helps, obviously get in touch with Alopecia UK, the website, or the social media. And finally, just to say happy 15th birthday to Alopecia UK, and congratulations actually to the team. For doing such a fantastic job. The team's grown over the years quite a lot. I've known a few of these people for quite a while, but they do a fantastic job of supporting us and everybody else. So just a big thanks to them, and happy 15th birthday. But thanks for watching.